This video the intention is to try to help you understand how executive function is affected by ADHD. So executive function is our brain is formed as we've got the prefrontal cortex here, and our executive function skills are housed in this portion of our brain. And for people with ADHD, this is not, it's a little bit delayed, the formation of this part, and not across the board. So you might have some executive skills that are stronger and then some that are still in development. But let me explain what the executive skills are first, and then explain how that can affect a child or anybody. So working memory is one, and I've done videos on working memory. That's the 3 to 7 pieces that you can keep in your working memory at any given time. And so if you're forgetful, if kids might forget what that next step is. If they're given a 2 or 3 step command, they might only remember that first step. So that's a way it can affect them. Task initiation, meaning like you procrastinate starting activities, especially low interest activities. Impulse control, it could be verbal or physical. Emotional control, they might get dysregulated pretty easily. Sustained attention might be more challenging for them. That's focus. Planning and prioritization, an inability to sort of prioritize which activity is the most important thing to start with, and then how to plan it out. That's why we give kids planners. Also time management. That's another reason schools have planners, to help kids manage those things. Organization, so like keeping track of objects, jackets, personal items, schoolwork, all that kind of stuff. Their desk might be sort of a mess. Goal-directed persistence, so understanding what their goal is and then how to work toward it. Time blindness is a big issue for people with ADHD, so they might not really have a good sense of how to plan things out like that. And the idea of, the near future, the way in the future, it's much blurrier for them sometimes. Flexibility, meaning an ability to change your thinking around either what you're going to do or, something comes up that's unexpected and it might throw them off a little bit more than a neurotypical peer. And metacognition, meaning that ability to understand, to see how you're thinking and understand why you're thinking the way you're thinking or how you understand things. It's kind of weird, but it's sort of that bird's eye view of a situation. And that can also play into social situations for kids or anybody. That like reading the room, being able to empathize, being able to see another person's perspective. It can get affected sometimes. Again, this isn't across the board. It's not every single one of these skills is going to be weaker. It's certain ones for each individual. It's a very individualized thing. So that's why it might be a good idea to try to hone in on which ones are the strengths for your child and which ones are the harder ones, so that you can support the ones that are weaker and you can use the ones that are the strengths to really help them thrive. And again, I think I mentioned this in another video, but I have some executive function surveys on my website, so feel free to go to that resource and you can just print them up and find out for yourself which ones, and for you too, which is kind of interesting. And the thing you want to make sure you understand about your child, if you're raising a child with ADHD, is that they can be up to 30% delayed in any of these areas compared to their same age peers. So think about that. If you've got an 11-year-old, they might be acting more like an 8-year-old in some of these ways. A 16-year-old might be more like a 12 or 13-year-old. So that's when you start looking at things like getting a driver's license, doing some more mature things that require responsibility. You might look at that and decide as a family whether you think these are good ideas or not. Because sometimes kids are more likely to have, it's just true, they're just more likely to have car accidents. They're more likely to do some more dangerous things in some cases. And so it's just good to be aware of. I'm not trying to scare you, but it's just good food for thought to think about how you want to plan things out as a parent. Not to say that you shouldn't let them get a driver's license. It's just something to be mindful of. And that's my only reason for mentioning it. And also when you're thinking about their success in school, if they're having trouble in these areas, then that very well may play out in their grades. They may have a lot of missing assignments. They may be confused about assignments. They may not know where the paper is. They may have all these pieces, right? And the teacher's expecting, you're a seventh grader, you should be able to keep track of this paper and get this done. But the reality is they may be, that part of their brain may be more like a fourth or fifth grader, and the teacher's not treating them that way, right? They're treating them like they're similar to their same age peers. It's kind of like the kid on the playground. If you ever were, on a playground when your children were little, and there's that, that one child who's just giant for some reason for their age. They're just a big kid, and some kids just grow faster, right? And you had to really think as the adult in the situation, if you thought they were acting immature or something, you think to yourself, wait a minute, they're not acting immature. They're actually acting their age. They just look older than they are. So that's kind of what happens for kids with ADHD. Sometimes they look their age, their body is their age, but their brain isn't necessarily that age in all those executive skills yet. And so it's confusing for everybody, frankly. It's confusing for teachers and parents and the kids themselves, because they see their friends doing some of these things with ease and they think, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. Why can't I do that? And that's what's so heartbreaking, right? Is that they don't realize that that's just the hard part for them. And so to help them and support them with those areas in a really non-critical, non-judgmental way is the biggest blessing, the biggest gift you could give your child, is to not try your hardest not to judge the struggle they're going through, and just help them try to figure it out and support them. So I don't know if that helped at all. I hope it did. That's it. So just remember that there can be up to a 30% delay. And that's just a number to keep in your mind when you start to feel frustrated about something. Just say to yourself, 30% delay. I got to remember, and I got to try to figure out how to support. Okay, thanks.